My name is Aisha Jusino Camp. I am 51 years old. I am a mental health therapist, a U.S. Army vet, and I am originally from New York City. I am the proud wife of a local hero, Sergeant Christopher Camp, badge number 2792 of the El Paso Police Department. I am here today to talk about the events that took place on February 8th, 2024, where my husband saved a suicidal subject who held a gun to his head, wishing to end his life. Since this incident, the El Paso Police Department has been purposely retaliating against my husband and my family over a video that I released to the media news outlets that has caused what I believe to be the biggest witch hunt against my family in the department's history. On February 8th, 2024, a priority call was dispatched to the Northeast region for immediate assistance involving a highly irate male subject who was having a major mental health crisis. The CIT unit, the Crisis Intervention Team, is made up of a police officer and a qualified mental health professional that could consist of a caseworker or a therapist who were already at the scene attempting to control the situation. My husband, who was nearby at the time, was en route while listening to the updates of the call as the call proceeded to escalate. My husband, who has a master's degree in mental health counseling and who was a hostage negotiator for CMT for 5 years, met up with the female half of the male subject who was in distress and concerned for her male half. An officer encountered the subject who stated that the man had a gun to his head, and the call was now a major incident where the dispatcher cleared the air. My husband shortly arrived at the scene and observed the Emergence Health Network, either caseworker or therapist, who was sitting inside their vehicles on the roadway away from the current altercation. My husband immediately got onto the radio and advised that only one officer speak to the subject due to the increased set of circumstances. My husband then approached the scene where the incident was unfolding. My husband could hear various yelling and shouting towards the subject. CIT officers were supposed to be in charge of the situation, but my husband observed a female CIT officer hiding behind a metal-type box in a safe place away from the subject. The other CIT officer, Perez, was hiding near a bush where you could only observe his feet sticking out of the brush as he attempted and unsuccessfully de-escalated the situation. My husband observed the subject with the weapon to his head and immediately assessed the situation due to his prior knowledge and experience with mental health. He immediately turned the voice of reason to himself and began to approach the subject with open hands and arms, while stating that he was unarmed and would approach him, but he needed to put his weapon down. My husband stood directly in the line of absolute danger, knowing that should the subject turn the weapon at my husband, he would have been shot. My husband wanted to protect his fellow officers and the community while he approached the subject. My husband had no knowledge of the subject or any formal criminal history, nothing. My husband approached the subject and treated the individual as a human being. It was this encounter that could have gone either way. It was a critical point that my husband did something defying the odds. My husband gained support, rapport, and trust that was built within seconds of the incident. It was stated on a local news network that my husband de-escalated the situation within 3 minutes of interacting with the man. I cannot state strongly enough that my husband vocalized to his officers, "I don't want any of you to do what I just did. It will get you killed." My husband still caring for his officers after the male subject was placed in their custody. This is the actions of a hero. My husband placed himself in the line of fire to protect his officers and the community, and he also shielded his own body to protect the subject. regardless of the set of circumstances involved. This was an incident that can only be based on pure experience, dealing both in education and work history within the mental health system. My husband was relieved that the man was now in custody and was about to gain the necessary help he desperately needed. This was a triumph for the El Paso Police Department in saving a man's life whose only thought process was to end his life. That was his mindset. If it wasn't for the quick thinking and immediate response by my husband, this would have been a different ending. My husband returned to the Northeast Regional Command Center and reviewed the body-worn camera footage for training purposes to use in shift training. Officers, sergeants, and lieutenants do this often. There is endless camera footage out there by officers who download or use their phones to record the footage off their computer screens. This is known to the department. And it's been going on for years before body-worn cameras. This is nothing new. Officers will even share their footage to FitFam for immediate release. Chris even shared the footage with his own commander, Ignacio Hernandez, who replied by thanking him for his professionalism and a positive outcome. It is sad that this same commander, if asked today about the knowledge of this incident, would deny such an event ever took place. The lieutenant of CIT, Lieutenant Pisarcik, was also contacted by Chris about the event, who stated that he saw the video, applauded the actions that were taken, and that it was a perfect ending, to which Chris replied, "We all did a great job," meaning the Northeast officers. Chris came home and he showed me the footage via a thumb drive. I was both in shock and so immensely proud, but realized the risk involved. I realized that this would be a unique story to share with the public of the great positive work of the El Paso Police Department. This was not a banner to demonstrate my husband. It was to promote the great work of humanity that police departments can do with a positive outcome. It is too common to see negativity demonstrated across news channels of police being involved in deadly force incidences involving interactions between an officer and a mental health subject. My husband knew nothing of the release of this video that I did to surprise my husband with the level of work that was beyond words. However, instead of the footage being positive, the El Paso Police Department twisted the narrative and made this into a negative outcome due to their own bias against my husband. Chief Pete Pasillas immediately ordered an investigation against my husband for his act regarding this incident. Chief Pasillas, who is also known as Daddy to his protected few, demanded a full investigation to begin criminal prosecution against my husband. Internal Affairs took no time to be ordered to deliver a cease and desist order to ban my husband from talking to any media outlets or risk harsh discipline up to termination of his employment. Please keep in mind, this was all done within days after I released the video footage to the Jerusalem Press media outlet. Detectives Ontiveros and Hinojos showed up at the Northeast Regional Command Center on a Wednesday and removed my husband's work computer for evidence. My husband then met with both detectives at headquarters and gave a statement with his attorney on the following day. Needless to say, it did not go the way the SIU wanted, and the witch hunt started to increase, all spearheaded by Chief Pasillas. They then showed up again on a Friday and took my husband's iPhone without any documentation or any formal warrant. His Fourth Amendment rights were violated. The same detectives stated after taking the phone from my husband's hand, we think we have enough PC for a judge to sign a warrant for your iPhone," and proceeded to take off without my husband having any form of communication to his officers in the field, any communication to me, his wife. This is what the El Paso Police Department thinks about their officers. A few days later, while on his days off, my husband was officially notified that he was no longer permitted to work at his region and was removed immediately to Mission Valley Regional Command, where he will report to work on a Sunday. The commander, Ignacio Hernandez, claimed he did not know why he was being sent, but he felt that it was due to an investigation being conducted against him. While on his way to work, about 1.5 weeks of being at Mission Valley, my husband was ambushed by a false traffic stop by West Side Patrol officers on March 17th. SIU Sergeant Mike Chavez swooped on my husband and, along with Detective Ontiveros, gave Chris a broad search warrant for our home. No address, no name, no description of our house, demanding the retrieval of a thumb drive with the video footage of the suicidal subject. They forced themselves into our home and refused to accept that Chris gave them 4 thumb drives where the video could be obtained. They immediately ordered Chris out of the house while crime scene units began processing the interior of our home. While in our home, they helped themselves to our air conditioning, water, and Gatorade bottles out of our pantry, making themselves at home. And to make matters worse, and it sickens me to my core, they desecrated my father's ashes by tampering with the urn. The lid was screwed off, and it was apparent that the ashes were moved, looking for a thumb drive that they already had. They proceeded to take everything that was electronic, anything that can store information, devices, anything that they could find to take away as evidence. Keep in mind, this is all for a video in which Chris saved a man's life, which they were now calling a Class A misdemeanor for sharing the video. On March 18th, Chris's presence was requested to Internal Affairs, where they were ordered by Chief Pasillas to surrender his rifle, his radio, his badges, and all of his credentials, and he was placed on administrative leave with pay due to a pending criminal investigation. My husband has been made a poster child for absolutely nothing. My husband saved a man's life, and for this, the El Paso Police Department is deliberately, intentionally retaliating against my husband for a witch hunt, all on the backs of the taxpayers. My husband had been targeted for always being the voice for his officers and always speaking up against wrongdoings within the department. This deliberate action against my husband is immoral and illegal. Sergeant Robert Gomez of the PIO was threatened by my husband's knowledge in media that he spearheaded this along with Chief Pasillas. I want justice against the El Paso Police Department. What they did to me and my family is unjust. This cannot continue to happen. They are going after my husband due to personal bias, a vendetta for my husband being one of the good guys. My husband is supposed to be promoted to lieutenant this summer, and I know, due to the vindictiveness of Chief Pasillas, he will retaliate yet again and refuse to promote my husband. I am reaching out to all police officers and the citizens of El Paso. We cannot allow this dictatorship to continue. This act of pure hatred for saving a man's life. My husband's name has been slandered, defamed, and his integrity destroyed at the hands of this chief. If this department swears by its core values of the city of El Paso, then it's time to change the city's representatives and the chief's office and have a full-scale investigation conducted by the Department of Justice. We are seeking an attorney who is willing to fight for punitive damages against the El Paso Police Department for all of the legal wrongs that are evident with this case. The criminal fictional case that is against my husband for a Class A is purely out of spite. I will not rest until justice is done against this department for my family's rights and for what's right for my husband. If they do this to one of their own, they will do this to you too. And it's only a matter of time. It's time for Assistant Chief Julie Incidiaga, Sergeant Robert C. Gomez, Chief Pete Pasillas to make the change and be the difference. And by that I mean it's time for you to get the hell out of here. I'm a New Yorker by blood. I don't ever back down from a fight. This is a fight for every officer on the street who is at the mercy of this department. I'll stand with you, I'll stand beside you, and I will not be silenced.